What's up, everyone? I'm Joe Lemon, and welcome back to the Sales Culture Podcast. So today, man, I just got one of those super, inspiring, soulful, and just down to earth, honest conversations with the CEO of HoneyPot. HoneyPot is a major brand that is coming up in a lot of big box retailers. She offers feminine products, but she has a whole journey about how she kind of went from going, with something that just wasn't offered in the marketplace to providing something that was more so for everyone and using holistic ingredients with that as well. So Beatrice Dixon, man, she's just blowing up out of Atlanta. I got a lot of respect for how she moves. I love how she carries her brand. I love the fact that she is just staying true to her vision behind it. And most importantly, it seems like, I don't know, I haven't used the product, but based off what I hear from others out there, it seems to be a great quality product as well. So with that, I want to get right into it. And before we do, though, I gotta give a big plug to my guy, Brandon Beware, man, over at True Consciousness. And he's really trying to inspire Black men to get into being more mindful. Something I'm big into. I mean, you guys know I have another podcast called the Mindful Business Renegades. And I'm just a big believer in the fact that that's our most important muscle and one of our biggest assets. Without mental health and sound mind, man, the rest just doesn't make sense. So I want to plug in his quick video right now. So let's fade into that, and then we'll jump into the conversation with Beatrice Dixon.
Person that you're actually talking to, like the title could be a nigga like KD, like who is the audience, who is the person that you're having a conversation with.
And that's the major thing about it, my nigga. It's like when I was able to see God in myself, like I was able to see God in other people. And I think that creates a certain energy about the way you do, the way you walk, the way you talk.
Happy to be here, baby.
People say they see me, my skin is glowing. It's like, drinking water and, drinking juice. Shout out to Queen. But like, you'll see certain yogis, like there's this internal thing. You know what I'm saying? There's this spirituality, there's this pureness of spirit, pureness of intention that when oriented the right way and maintained and manifested the right way, you can see it on somebody. In the same way, like, somebody ain't got their shit together, their skin look dull and, so I just want to shine in everything I'm doing. That's kind of why I got into this shit, was I was in a fucked up place. So, I wanted to share the tools and the systems, the ideas, the thought processes, you know what I'm saying, the highs, the lows, all that shit. That's what this brand is about. So, if that sound like something that you could fuck with, tap in.
No trouble.
Well, man, first and foremost, I got to say, you got a super soulful presence about you. It's one of the things that wanted to, make sure that I had you on the podcast because, we just don't see a lot of founders like you, especially into a lot of these big box retailers like Target. That kind of puts a target on your back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, like, if you don't mind, I would love to kind of talk about, your actual brand, HoneyPot. It's obviously doing big things, man. I would love to talk about more so about being in like leadership during these moments. I know they just recently had a whole Target ad campaign. And, it seemed like people were trying to take some shots at you, man. So I just want to, check around once you get there, how to kind of handle those stuff. So welcome on to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, I mean, I think doing this kind of work, you just have to be used to pressure, and you have to be used to things that you just can't control. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't, because when you can't control something and you want something to happen, that applies pressure all within itself, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's just kind of the name of the game. It's the work. It's not really much you can do about it.
It, it is the work. So I mean, be it like, why'd you get into this work in the very beginning? Like, what was the motivating force to say, I'm gonna go start my own, brand. I'm gonna launch my own product line. Like, what was the inspiration to even move that way?
Well, I okay. I mean, really the reason that I got started personally in this business is kind of because the mother of invention is necessity,
Mm,
right? And um, I had an almost year-long bacterial vaginosis infection. I would go on Google, I would take the medicine, I would, try everything I could Google and find to try to get relief, and nothing that I was doing gave me relief.
mm,
But one morning I had a very vivid dream with my grandmother, and in the dream, she basically handed me a piece of paper and had a list of ingredients, and she told me that this would be the thing that would solve my problem, right? And so in the dream, I just kept repeating what she had written down. And when I woke up, I couldn't believe it because it seemed so real.
mm.
It wasn't like I was asleep. It was like I was sitting here having a conversation with you, you know?
Yeah.
And um so when I woke up, I wrote down what she told me because I just kept repeating it. And um and then within a couple of days, I made what she told me to make because I worked at Whole Foods at the time. So I had access to those ingredients because everything was natural and clean.
Mm.
And then maybe like 4 or 5 days after me using it, everything that I was dealing with went away. And that's how I got started in this business.
Man, you know what? So I've definitely heard you say that in other interviews. And I just love the fact that you kind of bring that up though. Like, because I think a lot of people would kind of cower back to be like, man, I had to dream because I don't want to seem a type of way. But I love the fact that you press into your whole spirituality with it. I mean, you know, um having that as one of your guiding forces, has that kind of helped you be able to kind of just stay like grounded throughout the process?
Yeah, because I feel like that everybody has that as a grounding force.
Mm,
It's just, are you conscious about it, right? Do you
mhm.
have an awareness about it? Is it something that really matters to you? Um, for me, it's something, my connection to my ancestors matters to me. And so it's only natural for it to be kind of a guiding light in my life because I don't take it for granted, you know, and I have an awareness that it's here. Does that make sense?
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, man. I love the fact that you're courageous with that piece of it because a lot of people. And I was talking to this group this morning about this, about how capitalism is like its own religion to a lot of people, and people run after the actual
That
dollar,
shit is a religion.
right? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and people run after these dollars, and they don't really realize how brainwashed a lot of people are, and they aren't making their own choices, you know. And
Well, yeah, I mean, but I feel like a lot of the choices that me and my brother I think it was me and my brother was just talking about this the other day. A lot of the choices that everybody makes aren't your own choices, right? Whether it's having to do with capitalism, whether it's the way that you were brought up or conditioned.
mm,
A lot of times we're taking on what somebody else has gone through in their life,
mhm,
and they've kind of spilled that onto us,
mhm,
right? But even if you're a kid who grew up with nothing, right, that is conditioning all within itself because you think that you want money. You think that the dollar bill will solve everything because you come from nothing and you come from struggle, right? And that is not some shit that you can help. You understand what I'm saying?
I get it.
I think at the I think at the core of it, mostly everybody wants to be financially comfortable, right? Does that mean that we're capitalists for wanting that? Maybe. Or or does it just mean that everybody wants to be comfortable. You know, some people have been brainwashed into thinking that money can kind of solve for everything. Mm-hmm. You know, and if that's their way, then at some point in their life they'll figure out that that's not everything, right? You know, I wasn't trying to interrupt you. I'm just saying I think all of us have that in us, right? All of us do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in one way or another, you know what I'm saying? Some capitalists are a little more conscious than others, right?
100%.
Yeah, you know, I feel like as long as it's not coming from a bad place, or you're not hurting or harming anybody else, shit, if you want to be a capitalist, do that shit if that's what you want, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and you know, this is like way off script because this is dope to me because capitalism kind of takes on that whole take for a lot of people as being negative. But I mean, I openly tell everybody I'm a salesman at like heart first and foremost. You know what I'm saying? Like I sell,
right.
you know, like that's what I do. I believe in making money. Right. You know what I'm saying? I do it so we can eat well. I do it so we can do certain, you know, activities and so we can have freedom to actually make choices that we want to make. But you know, I think there is a balance. Like as like a founder who's done sales in the hundreds of millions, right? Like how do you process that now? Has it evolved over time as far as like how you go about building your enterprise and, you know, having that consciousness aspect, or has it been pretty consistent?
I appreciate you for saying that. We haven't done hundreds of millions yet, but from your mouth to our bank account's ears. But I mean, how do I put? I don't do this for the money, and I do it for the money, right? Like, it's not the. And I'm speaking for me and my brother and our team. The money is what shows you your growth, right? But what's most important is the products that we serve, the ingredients that go into them, you know, us having the ability to have our shit together so that we can actually supply for the demand, us making sure that we have our quality systems in place so that we're actually delivering something beautiful and clean, kind of from root to shelf, right? To answer your question, yes, the way that I think about money has changed just because I've changed. And, you know, at some point, you know, we will, you know, exit this company and, you know, having the money to be able to live the life the way that you want to live, because I personally don't really want to, I don't want to be 45, 50 and working, right? I want to be retired, you know? I want to enjoy this planet. I want to enjoy my time. I want to be able to sit down and really, really, really on levels enjoy a meal. Not that I don't do that now, but I look forward to the time when my time is literally completely 1,000% mine, right? There's no calendar involved. There's no fucking phone involved. There's no text message involved. You know, there's no meetings involved. I look forward to the day that I'm grateful to be in this moment, though.
Of course.
I'm here for the ride. I love this shit, right?
Of course.
But the amount of work and focus and giving of myself that I have to give to this company, like even in this moment, right? Like, I'm just gonna be honest with you.
Please.
Like real shit. I don't feel like doing this right now, but I have to do it because it's my job, right?
Yes.
I'm having a week where I don't feel like necessarily being public. You understand what I'm saying?
100%.
But that really doesn't matter because I have to do this. This is my job. This is a part of what I do, right? So I think in a lot of ways, me understanding what this is all for and understanding what I want to do with it and where I want it to take me and all those things. And why we're doing this, right? I mean, we're doing this for vaginas, right? And so we have to really give this all that we have, right? But at some point, us giving this all that we have has to give us all that we want. Does that make sense? And so, yeah, like, and that has changed over time. But everything changes over time because change is just always happening, you know?
100%. I mean, and, you know, thank you for being like honest with it, because I think one of the biggest things that a lot of founders in particular struggle with is putting on this face. You know what I mean? And a lot of people think that, yo, I'm gonna go start this company, and then I'm gonna go be true to my truest beliefs and do everything, and they don't realize that they're still building a company that's relying on them to be this person that maybe they don't want to be always, because we got so many multiple layers to it. Like, you know, man, I love the fact that you said you don't want to be here right now. I mean, because I understand the core of what you're saying, and I talk to founders all the time, and I challenge them to think like, do you really want to do this business? Because man, it's not easy trying to work startups, and you know, the money don't just flow. Even if you raise some money, then you got expectations behind that dollar, and you know, and
yeah. When you raise money, that shit has to turn into money. You don't, you know, like, and I think that is a misconception, right? Like, and as black owned businesses, like Goldman Sachs just did a release the other day that they're putting $10 billion into investing $10 billion into humans of color. And the article was specific to Black owned businesses. Now, the shit that they didn't say is that 10 billion's got to turn into a fucking 100 or more.
Yep.
So the fucking pressure that's under there, the stuff that's under there, that isn't necessarily the sexy shit, is that we have to make good with these dollars. Investment capital has to turn into money. A $10 billion fund, that shit got to turn into 100, 200.
10x.
You understand what I'm saying?
They won't be satisfied if it's 5x. That's not big enough. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, I mean, because and they know that everything that they bet on isn't going to go, but there has to be several of those companies that can make up for the ones that didn't go, right? So, you know, it's just something that we have to be conscientious about. This is a really beautiful time for Black owned businesses, for humans of colors that are able to access capital that we have been speaking up on for the past few years that it wasn't available. Well, guess what? The shit's here now. So now we have to execute, right? And we have to make good with it. We can't fuck it up, because if it gets fucked up, if it doesn't go the way that they would want it to go, right? Then there's an opportunity for it to not necessarily be there again, for this opportunity not to come. So we have to really, really, really make good with this time, with this space, with this access of capital that has really been granted this past year, right?
Yes.
And there's time for us to execute on it. there's time for us to make these multiples. We can do it. I'm just saying that typically what it takes to do it isn't the sexy shit. It's the hard stuff.
Well, I mean, man, I think you're gonna help a lot of people out with this conversation, because you're right. People want to run out and raise money, and a lot of the things I preach is the kind of the unsexy shit of just getting out there and getting your hands dirty. But
Mm-hmm.
talk about some of the things that would mess up the money, if you don't mind. Like things that founders should be wary of if they're going to go out and go ahead and take some money. Like, what's some activities that you think would throw it off, either for their company or for just us as people? Like what would mess it up for us down the line? Like, what type of activities do you think are bad behavior?
I think it's important, and I don't want to focus on just the bad, but
Please, yeah.
I think it's more of like being careful that you don't just throw money at shit just because you have it, right? What makes a company, and my brother Sai taught me this, is, are you able to be lean? Are you able to figure out what works? Are you able to have a machine that has a little bit of marketing to it, but the company is able to kind of flow and take care of itself, right? We had to be lean. We had to be really efficient with every dollar that we had, because we just weren't out here raising zillions of dollars. You understand what I'm saying? Right. And so that forced us to be a real business, right? A real business has year-over-year growth. A real business doesn't rely on any one person to be there, right? So I think that it's important to not make the company about you. Like, the products or the service needs to be able to speak for itself. Don't just throw money at shit just because you raised, multiple millions of dollars, right? $1 million is $1 million fucking dollars, right? $100,000 is $100,000. If you're putting $100,000 or $1 million or $2 million towards something, whatever that thing is, it needs to work, right? Don't think that you have to just invest some ridiculous amount of money in the beginning. Like, test it and see what works, and then let that grow, right? A mistake that I made when we first got started is thinking that we needed to spend zillions of dollars on marketing, and not marketing, on our branding, right? In hindsight, we working with some of the branding agencies we work with, they're expensive and they're really costly. And then you find out later that they may not have even, probably once you've left them and had to move or transition to somebody else, you find out later that shit that they were working on, when you find somebody who really knows how to do it, a lot of times they start going into the details, going into the code, finding mistakes. You understand what I'm saying? So, if you have raised a lot of money, hiring people to come in and work so that you own their time, right? Because when you work with an agency, you're only getting so many hours. Don't make me wrong. I think that agencies have a time and a place, right? But I think that it's better to have somebody internal that is feeding that agency what you want done, right? What your message is, how you want it to flow, and not having it go the other way around, right? Just because you don't necessarily understand.
That's important right there, though. I mean,
yeah,
I don't want people to kind of, just to breeze past that, because I think a lot of times you're right. Mm-hmm. Like, people say, oh, well, I'm not good at marketing, I'll go out and get myself an agency. And they go ahead and throw,
mm-hmm.
Whatever it is towards the agency. And then, the agency always has the little extra fees on the back. And, oh, I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that fee. And so whatever you thought, multiplied by 1.5 at least, right?
Exactly. And there's some really cool companies. Like, there's a company called Right Side Up. They're kind of like a headhunting firm, but they represent creative people, right? So there's like creative, and this is if you have capital. This is if you have money, because you can't hire a headhunter or anything like that unless you're able to spend. If you like this person, it might cost $10,000 or more to buy out, to basically pay the headhunter. But sometimes you can hire these people and they can literally just be like a consultant for you, but they only work for you, right? So there's Right Side Up. I can't think of some of the other companies, but if you were to look up like marketing headhunting services, or even if you just started with Right Side Up and they weren't able to give you what you needed, then you can, kind of transition and ask them for recommendations on other places, right? But, there's so many ways to skin the cat, and we don't have to go with the ways that are like the most popular way, the way that everybody goes. And I think another thing is to not just focus on only top line growth. That's what a lot of, in tech, that's a popular way to do it.
Yeah.
But if you're in the type of business that we're in, which is like being in the consumer goods space, you want to be really paying attention to, and not in the beginning, right? Because in the beginning, you just have to grow. But once you start raising, lots of money and doing all those types of things, don't just be focused on the top line. You want to be focused on what's happening below the line too, right? Because kind of in this COVID world, when you think about some of the huge companies that were raising so much fucking money and didn't necessarily have profitability, didn't necessarily have good EBITDA, didn't necessarily have these things. A lot of the times what's happening is, if you see it and if you're connected to these things, a lot of these companies are having to do down rounds, where their valuations may have been up here, but they're having to raise money at a valuation down here because they're just throwing money at shit, right?
Yep.
And so, I just think that it's important to be conscientious and to not just make decisions just because you have the money to do it, but to make a decisive decision as if you don't have the money to do it, right? Because, the shit matters. Who knows if a COVID is going to happen again, right? Who knows what can happen? Any fucking thing can happen, right? And you don't want to have just thrown a bunch of money at shit and then be like, oh shit, this happened and now I need the bread, So I just think that we have to let what's happened over the last year kind of teach us how to run our businesses effectively and well, right? Like, you have to spend money on marketing. You have to spend money on branding, right? I'm not saying don't do that.
Right.
I'm just saying that don't think that you have to break the bank for it, because you have to spend a decent amount of money, but you don't necessarily always have to spend as much as you think you do.
Yeah. I would definitely say that last year was like it was like 10 years worth of lessons and like 9 months. You know what I mean? Like it was
right.
It was packed in there, and what's good about what you're saying is it's back to the basics of just making sure that your business is profitable. And I always kind of view this like raising funds as man, it could be a backdoor trap for a lot of people. I mean, if they aren't profitable, because it works in the whole tech world. And I think tech world gets all the big glamour and they get the nice, they're on Forbes, they make the lists, but they also, a lot of those guys, when they hit it, they hit it at 85, 90% profitability. Like, you know what I mean? Tech can be extremely profitable, but it doesn't go
because you don't, it doesn't go for what now?
I was going to say, like, it really doesn't go that well if you got a hard product. You know what I mean? If you got like fixed cost up front, it's a different play. Like, you can't just run and just, do whatever it takes to kind of get the users on board and then not look at it. So right. I mean, I love this conversation. And, even launching this whole media company that we're doing, it's like, I love more transparent conversations, because that's what's needed in media. I think a lot of times we take too many sound bites and we just throw it up, and then people are on to the next. We keep scrolling, get that dopamine going. And it's like, yeah, that's good, but we got to slow it down. You know what I'm saying? Like if anything, COVID has helped me slow down. And any other lessons that maybe you got from last year?
I mean, there's so many, man, but I think most importantly, like you just said, it's important to slow down. It's important to like take your time. It's important to be well. It's important to pay attention to yourself. It's important to know that there's going to be good days and bad days. There's going to be melancholy days. It's going to be, you know, that the thing is going to range all over the place, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and you know, it's important to understand life and death, right? The shit's going to happen. It's happening. We're in the process. One of my friends said something cool. We're all in the process of dying, right? In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Not to be morbid, but
real.
You know, so to really like make your days count, make your time count, appreciate yourself, love yourself, be kind to yourself, be graceful to yourself, but also like feel, right? Like, you know, and I think the feeling is just as okay as whether it's good or bad. You know, I think that it's just necessary, because if it's in there, it's better to not repress it, right? It's better just to get the shit out, right? So, you know, and be conscious when it comes to our companies. We really just have to be conscientious. You know, we really have to be paying attention. We really have to be aware, especially in the companies of today, right? Because this Generation Z and this millennial generation, like, they give a fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Them cats care, man.
And yeah, and they care, and they're tuned in a way. You know, I mean, I've just never experienced anything like this shit in my life, and I talk to a lot of people, and you know, and I mean, think about how many conversations that are very similar to this one are happening all the fucking time. You got Clubhouse, you got IG Live, you got Zoom, you got, think about it, podcasts. I mean, this is a light week for me, but like a busy week for me, bro, is like 20 of these.
Really?
Right. Yeah. And it's like, it's the humans that are coming up at this time that are bringing about these conversations, which is also bringing about this really beautiful change, which is just bringing about a lot of stuff, you know? So I think the other thing that I would say about, which isn't a negative thing, but just about having a company at this time and space, is like, make sure your company like means it, man. You know, like, make sure that it's here for something. Make sure that you stand for something. Make sure that you are authentic to who you are. You know, I think it's really popular, you know, having these D&I conversations, right? But like, don't have that fucking conversation unless you mean it. You know, because it's gonna come out if you don't, you know. So I think that it's just a really beautiful time to be alive, to be in business, to be a human, which isn't necessarily popular opinion. But I think what happened this last year, everybody really having to just like calm the fuck down,
right?
Whether you wanted to or not.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there is something beautiful in there, you know? Yeah. So.
Nah, 100%. I mean, it was a time whenever you were forced to feel all your emotions and look at yourself in the mirror. Whereas I could just skate off and do my thing and run off the house. But now I'm like, I'm in the house, especially here in LA. The cats are trying to keep us in the house, even this year. You know what I'm saying? So,
but there's something nice about nesting, though, right?
No, man, it was the best. It was the best. You know what I mean? Like, I'll be lying if I said it wasn't the best. I lost money last year, but it was beautiful. Like,
it's just money, man.
It's currency. It's supposed to come and go. That's what it does. You know what I mean? It's current. I mean, but so, all right, as we wrap up, you know, I know, so I used to live in Atlanta for like 8 years, and it's been crazy from the West Coast watching it kind of evolve, and all my family's still there. My mom's still down in Jonesboro, and so, you know, it's like, it's great to see it kind of move. But are you from the city? Are you from Atlanta originally?
Not originally, but I've been here like 16, 17 years. I've been here a while, you know?
It is
So
home.
this is where I'm from. Yeah. Yeah.
So, any thoughts about how the city has been supportive or not supportive to the whole business? I'm just curious to kind of see how that culture has shifted, because it was a little different when I was there.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta um really supports us. When you look at our sales and you kind of look at the Southeast,
Mm-hmm.
the Southeast is a huge part of what makes honeypot, right? So the support is definitely here, whether it was when we were out in the world doing hair shows and trade shows and events and things like that. um you know Kind of partnerships with our banking relationships here, like yeah, it's definitely supported us, absolutely.
That's
I
dope.
wouldn't change a thing. Yeah.
That's dope. I mean, because I remember there was a time, this is 04-ish, 05-ish, when like having a startup in Atlanta was a little different, because they would say that they didn't have the funding that wasn't there. There wasn't that community support, and it was weird too, because of course Atlanta's always had a lot of Black people there, but there weren't a lot of Black leaders that were willing to kind of run the actual forefront. I mean, they were there, mayor, you know what I mean, but like I'm talking about.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So it wasn't as much. So I mean, that's really good to hear as we wrap up.
Yeah. I mean, we got Ryan at the gathering spot. We got. I mean, there's so much going on here that's really hot and really cool. So there's actually like a whole startup movement here. So I'm grateful for Atlanta. Atlanta has given me a lot, and I became an adult here. So yeah, like a proper adult.
a straight whole adult.
like adulting like a motherfucker. Yeah.
I love it.
Which I don't always love, but
that's real shit. That's real, yo. Hey man, but look, honestly, this has been fun talking, man. It's been like a breath of fresh air. Like I love your presence. I love how you're carrying the whole company. And it's just great to kind of see where you're gonna go. I'm looking forward to reinforce one time with the big exit, P&G or one of these other guys come through it and it's gonna swoop you up as they do. So yeah, I'm looking forward. Thanks for seeing me.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you, Joe.
Absolutely. We're out here.
All right.